Welcome back, everyone. I am excited to introduce my new series, Ghatna Chakra. Yes, you heard it right, where we'll be exploring essential topics in Indian polity designed specifically for those gearing up for competitive exams like UPPSC, CLAT, NLU Delhi's entrance, and Judicial Services examination. With these exams approaching, I felt it was the perfect time to create a series that helps you grasp key concepts in polity and understand them in a way that sticks. In each episode, we'll break down the most relevant topics, highlight important takeaways, and connect them to exam focused questions. Let's dive in and make mastering Indian polity simpler together. So let's get started with the Constituent Assembly and making of the Constitution. Now, the first formal demand of Constituent Assembly was made by Swaraj Party at a conference in Ranchi held on May 1934. Now, whenever I ask you that when was the first demand for Constituent Assembly, when did it arise? So, of course, we will just make this picture map in our heads where we'll say Constituent Assembly, Swaraj Party, Ranchi 1934 by M.N. Roy. So, basically, anything which could be asked related to the inception of Constituent Assembly, we have covered in this single statement. But then the demand was finally accepted in August offer of 1940. And initially we wanted that Constituent Assembly should be directly elected. But as according to the cabinet mission plan, it was said that it will not be directly elected. And that is why they came up with the provision of number of representatives from provinces that were based on their population. So it was actually 1:10 lakh. So there will be one representative for every 10 lakh people. And that is after this happened with the indirect election. And there was no adult franchise. Now, after that, who was the first president who presided over the meeting of Constituent Assembly? So now, when the first meeting of the Constituent Assembly was held, it was Dr. Sachidananda Sinha, who was the temporary president. So the acronym for this could be the subject which we used to read back in our school days, SST. So that is Sachidananda Sinha was the temporary. So SS is Sachidananda Sinha and T is for temporary. He was the temporary president of the Constituent Assembly. After that, on 11th December 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad was unanimously elected as president of the Constituent Assembly. Now, if I ask you that how much time did it take for the Constituent Assembly to create the entire constitution for us, I think we being the students of polity, we know it, that it was 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. Now, sometimes also in the examinations, the question get asked as that how many sessions did it take for the Constituent Assembly to create the constitution for us? So it took around 11 sessions for us to create the entire constitution. Now, coming on to the sources of Indian Constitution. Now, this is a very, very important part in the Indian Constitution series. Now, we know that the blueprint of Indian Constitution is actually Government of India Act 1935. Now, you know our Constitution, since we attained freedom after a very long while and there were already existing democracies or countries with a constitution. So, it was better off to take on with their experience, right? So, we basically took the best from any of the constitution so mentioned below. As first of all, we borrowed the concept of preamble from USA, DPSP from Ireland, Constitution of Canada, basically we got the appointment of governors. Then from the Constitution of Germany we got emergency provisions, after which the procedure established by law was from Japan. And now, to understand this further better, I will tell you that we'll just solve certain questions. The first one is that the concept of a union of states. These days, a lot it is being discussed, right? Union of states, Bharat, India, that is Bharat, right? So all of this was taken from the British North American Act. And this was discussed in the Constitutional Assembly Debate, Volume 7. Now, quickly, if I ask you this question, that the Indian political system, which one is supreme? Is it the Supreme Court, the Constitution, the Parliament, or the religion? Which one out of them is supreme? Of course, it is the Constitution of India. Now, the concept of judicial review in India has been adopted from the Constitution of USA. And the feature of the federal system of the Indian Constitution is inspired by Canadian Constitution, that is Canada. That also relates to the concept of federalism. Now, we have that from where did we get the concept of concurrent list in the Indian Constitution? Now, it was from the Australian Constitution. And from USSR, we got the concept of fundamental duties. From Australia, as already discussed, we got the concept of concurrent list. Germany, we got the concept of emergency provisions. Fundamental rights from USA, that is Bill of Rights there. Now, sometimes also this has been asked in the examination that who was the first nominated deputy chairman of the Constituent Assembly, first nominated deputy chairman of the Constituent Assembly. There he was Frank Anthony. Frank Anthony was the first nominated deputy chairman of the Constituent Assembly. He established All India Anglo-Indian Association. Now coming on to another very important aspect of the Indian Constitution, which relates to the Constitution articles and the schedules of the Constitution. So basically, we will not get into a lot of depth of it, but we'll learn this concept with the help of MCQs. So if I were to ask you that how many parts, articles and schedules was there in the original Indian Constitution, so it is 22 parts, 395 articles and 8 schedules. Then after, we have total 395 articles in the Indian Constitution. Originally, how many states and union territories were established as according to the State Restructuring Act? It was 14 states and 6 union territories. And when our constitution was in the nascent stage, we had total 12 schedules. So all of these questions are very, very pertinent from the point of view of any examination which can be held and has a concept of polity coming in.